Armored Core 6 is the 6th game in the Armored Core 6 is the 16th game in the Armored Core series, created around 10 years after its predecessor and developed by FromSoftware. In this game, you play as a robot mercenary who accepts various offers from different companies to do their dirty work for them for a bit of cash. For the purpose of this video, I played through the main story 3 times, got all the endings, unlocked every part available in the shop, got all the combat logs, and S-ranked all the missions. I wanted to do this to get a grip on the story, combat, gameplay, strengths and weaknesses of the game. This video will contain spoilers. If you want to play the full game spoiler free, make sure to play the game at least 3 times and then come back to watch the rest of the video.
Augmented human C4621 has awakened.
So first, I want to talk a little bit about the story and lore, but I won't go too deep since that's what VOD Videos channel's for. The game starts off with your handler Walter dropping you on top of a planet named Rubicon. Here you will find a call sign for your self-coded Raven. With this call sign, it is now legal for you to stay on the planet and work with various corporations as a mercenary. On your first playthrough, in a true FromSoftware fashion, you will go through various missions and quests while hardly understanding their purpose, any of the story, nor you will catch major plot points until maybe close to the end of chapter 4, where stakes get higher and everything becomes much more serious. But on subsequent playthroughs, with the understanding you have from your first playthrough, everything becomes much more clearer and you can piece out the puzzle pieces to discover an honestly very engaging story with some flawed storytelling.
The coral must be burned, 621. Even if that means reigniting the fire that scorched the stars.
See, I understand that it's a dark future with robots, and since it's a FromSoftware game, the gameplay is like 99% of the focus. But this is, in my opinion, if we solely talk about the story and not the lore, the best storytelling we've ever seen by FromSoftware.
621. I have to dispose of you.
The characters are much more likable than their other games. There are major set pieces while involving close relationships to the other characters. Characters react differently depending on how you finish each mission, and overall, I never expected to come out of this game wanting more from the story, since that's not usually what we expect from FromSoftware.
All or nothing.
I think what's missing from the story is more meaningful moments with the characters so we can know them a bit better and relate to them.
What awaits us on the other side? Raven, let's find out together.
That would make the later sections of the game where some of the main characters can die by your hand much more impactful.
Shared life. I saw the potential for our future. You and I could have walked together.
But as it stands right now, I think Armored Core 6 still tells a compelling story even though it has a very slow start.
Main system. Activating combat mode.
Let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. Armored Core 6 is a easy to learn, hard to master type of game. It starts off simple, and while it can be difficult to get a grip on the controls at first, you will soon realize you are one with the game when you are performing actions such as dodging, shooting, flying and boosting just by pure instinct. Unlike other FromSoftware games, it is close to impossible to not take damage in this game. You will take damage, a lot of it, and the game expects you to do so, which brings me to one of my complaints about the game, the bosses. I first want to point out that there's not a single boss in this game that I hate. There's one enemy type that I hate, but other than that, I think they're all at the very worst fine. The biggest complaint I have about them is their difficulty and how it can sometimes be all over the place. Now, of course, your build has a big impact on what your experience with the bosses feels like, and you can always switch it up to make the boss either easier or harder for yourself, but I've beaten all the bosses in the game within between at least 2 to 4 different builds, and every time I fought them, some of them felt too easy and honestly none of them felt too hard. For example, I fought Walter about 7 times and every time I was like, man, I wish this guy had a second phase. Or the 1-to-1 AC fights such as the Raven fight close to the beginning of the game, the cutscene makes it feel like it's supposed to be an epic battle between 2 ravens, but every time, the fight is over before it even begins.
Raven, we can still... Alright. We'll watch this one.
The only fights that I felt were balanced in a way that you will feel at least a little bit of challenge with any build were the double AC fights inside the Attack the Dam complex mission on your second playthrough and the All Mind fight at the end of your third playthrough. This is not a huge complaint I have, but it would have been nice to have a bit more balance in boss fights and maybe have a couple more challenging fights overall.
I always envied you.
Visually, this game looks stunning with jaw-dropping spectacles in almost every mission. The first time I realized the scale of the game was where I stood still and looked around myself to only realize that I am the size of an apartment and the little obstacles that I have been walking over and destroying this entire time were cars and trucks, and the tiny flying enemies are actually huge helicopters. From the moment you first see the Strider or the first time you encounter the Ice Worm,
Wait, something's wrong.
or when you realize that the entirety of a huge underwater city is actually a spaceship,
I give you the colony ship, Simon. Walter's parting gift.
the game is massive in scope and so are the levels, and for that my hats off to everyone at FromSoftware who worked on this game. However, one of the other criticisms that I have for this game is simple and sometimes even poor level design. Most missions in this game play out similarly. You go in, kill some mechs, get the objective done, maybe fight a boss or two, and that's it. 90% of the time there's nothing special about the levels and the only thing noteworthy are the visuals. Now, I understand that not every game needs complicated levels with challenging puzzles in them, and frankly, this game has such a fun gameplay loop that it gets away with it just fine. However, I also think that this game can benefit from having longer missions with more impactful levels that give the player the choice to explore more of them to maybe find secret boss encounters and missions, while having the linear levels in between as well. But as it stands right now, the purpose of the levels are to provide the player AC with enough space to fight other enemies, and have you follow a linear path to the next objective, and mostly nothing else other than some secret loot and encounters that, even though are great surprises, are very far in between.
I've got you now.
The customization in this game is one of the best customization systems I have ever seen in a video game, with it not only giving the players countless options to customize the look of their mechs, letting them go as far as importing their own images and logos into the game's custom logo editor, but also it lets the player to customize their mech parts, which directly affects their gameplay style. Each part you change will have an impact on your mech's movement and how you play, and finally making a mech that you're comfortable with that feels like your own, it's a feeling like no other. The only complaints I have about the customization are that I think the stats affected by your parts such as energy and weight could be explained in a much better and clearer way, and an implementation of a search bar can make it much easier to find your desired part. Now, let's talk about S-ranks. S-ranking missions feels weird. Sometimes you will finish a mission while taking a lot of damage and taking your sweet time to do so and still get the S-rank, while some other times you will finish the mission flawlessly in record time without taking any damage and still not get the S-rank. Most of the time there are specific things you have to do in each mission to be able to achieve the S rank, but the game doesn't give you the slightest clue on what you're supposed to do, and I think it can go a long way if the criteria for S ranking the missions was more clear than it is now. I know I might have sounded a bit negative in this video, but I think it's important to mention the flaws of the game since the good is very obvious. This game is an extremely unforgettable experience, and when I look back, the best and most memorable moments from this game for me were the spectacular set pieces. Destroying the Strider's leg and climbing on top of it, basically turning it into a level. Having an awesome first showdown against Balteus. The Cleaner and the Sea Spider blocking your path from reaching your next objective. Fighting a huge spaceship just to realize that there are tens, maybe hundreds of them, and later on fighting dozens of them with infinite boost. Encountering the gigantic ice form for the first time and then teaming up with your buddies to fight it while Rusty charges up a shot while saying,
"I won't miss."
and shooting the laser cannon across the entire ocean at the ice worm. Having your closest allies become final bosses and so on were some great memories that I will never forget that I had while playing this game. And by the end of it, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was left wanting more when the credits rolled. I want more bigger set pieces, I want more badass bosses, I want to know more about this world and its story, I want even better level and mission design, and I can't wait for FromSoftware to come out with the next game in the series. I will definitely be there to play it.
Once something's alive, it doesn't die easy.
Thanks for watching. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. This is my first video on YouTube, but I plan to make many more with high quality content. Every bit of support helps out a lot and motivates me to continue. Thanks again, and I will see you soon.